Howdy, welcome to video number 3. Still not sure where these are going to go, but something new. Kind of thought I would give a little insight onto my art education. You have to forgive me, I have not shaved in a few days. I don't get out much, so I don't shave until it bothers me. Way back in the first grade, so we're talking early 1980s here, I had an art class, like most kids did, and we had an assignment. Our assignment was to create an alien creature and then build a diorama of what its world looked like. This was one of the first times I'd ever sculpted. It's also one of the last times I ever sculpted. When I got done with my two-headed first grader clay monster that we fired in the kiln and used glazes on and made nice and pretty, I made my shoebox diorama and worked on it and tweaked it and kept going back to it. And I remember this vividly because of where things went. And they were displayed in the front lobby of our elementary school. This was at the time they did K through 6. Small little school. You know, I'm from a town that, depending on your interest, is famous or not famous, but it's still a shit splat town in East Tennessee. It's called Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge is famous because during World War II it was built specifically to enrich the uranium for the 2 bombs dropped on Japan. The city did not exist before that. It was built in secret, it was kept secret, nobody knew about it, nobody knew what was going on there, they just knew that there was something. And they still do secret weird shit out there. I mean, all the way through my childhood they were building, they were still enriching plutonium and making warheads, and at least as far as I knew. So it's a weird little place. Nobody in Oak Ridge is from Oak Ridge. Everybody came from somewhere else. I'm one of the few that was born there. Anyway, back to the story. Our dioramas were all connected into one big world and set up in the lobby of the elementary school. So anytime I left class, again, I was little. I was a first grader, 7 years old. I would stop by, and if my diorama had been messed with or touched or moved, I would fix it and readjust it, and I couldn't help myself. Well, one day during this, I got caught by the art teacher adjusting it, and she was mad. We're going to call her Pat, because, well, that's her first name. I don't want to give her a last name, but, she came along and she pulled me aside and said, again, to a child, you need to leave this alone, it's finished. Which, hey, that's great. But she proceeded to use the words, you're not an artist, you will never be an artist, this is garbage, there's no point messing with it anymore, you will never amount to anything as an artist, you need to go back to class and focus on something else. Well, I never willingly took another art class until high school. I had a couple of art classes. I had an art class in the 6th grade. And I continued drawing. I continued doing a lot of things. I didn't sculpt again until just a few years ago. But I just was discouraged. 6th grade, had a fantastic art teacher. She was wonderful, taught us lots. I learned a lot from her. I came back in high school, and because I was wanting to go into the broadcasting program, we had to take a class called Commercial Arts Survey. So you had to spend 1 6-week period in each of mechanical drawing, graphic arts, fine arts, television broadcasting, and creative writing. So I'm passing through all this, and I get into the fine arts class, and lo and behold, it is the same teacher that I had ran into in the 1st grade. She didn't remember me, but she saw some of my drawings. I had a sketch pad with me, and she just kept going, "Oh, those are so fantastic. You should enter the school's art show. I'm one of the judges. You really should get into it." I said, "No, I think I'm going to pass." And she kept bothering me about it. And I said, "Well, back in the 1st grade, you told me that I'd never amount to anything as an artist, so I'm really not willing to take your opinion on anything right now." I would never say anything like that. It's like, "Lady, listen. I'm not an idiot. I remember. This happened. I didn't make it up." And then you kind of saw the realization dawn on her head. Well, a few weeks later, she comes to class. "We're going to do tie-dye this week." She was your typical hippie, just, I'm not knocking hippies, because, I got a lot of hippie friends. I dig it. I can handle that. But she was in love with the smell of her own farts, and proceeded to tell a bunch of high school students how she learned her tie-dye techniques because she used to sleep with the tie-dye artist for the Grateful Dead. Now, granted, I memorized these techniques, and I made a decent living a few years later by selling tie-dye t-shirts that I used, and that was kind of fun, especially when I saw her at a show selling, and outsold her shirts because mine looked better. That was one of the last times I took an art class. I had to take one again in college. Got into this class, we were given an assignment. And this art teacher, he belittled this girl to the point where she was in tears. Just kept telling her how horrible, how that wasn't art, that was just garbage. Now you have to understand, the assignment was to make a found object sculpture, which is the definition of you take garbage and make something out of it. Well, this girl was in tears. She was just sitting there. And when he asked me to give my presentation on mine, because he kept complimenting it and liking it, I just, you know what? I think I'm in the wrong place. So, well, what do you mean? I said, "There's nothing you can teach me." I said, "Here's the difference between art teachers and artists. As the old saying goes, those who do can, those who can't teach." I said, and I've never met an art teacher who had any talent whatsoever. I said, the only thing that art teachers do is get their jollies by belittling people who actually do have talent to make themselves feel better. I was given the option of dropping the course or being kicked out of it. He was embarrassed. He turned purple. He was a little fella, so purple was all he was going to do. I'm not a violent person, but I'm also not passive. I'm not afraid to... I'm not little. And while, yeah, I'm pretty fat now, at that point in time, I just came off of 3 years of football and the fire academy. I was probably had about 9% body fat and was about 5'10", 230 pounds. I was big, and I used to be told often that I was scary. I don't intentionally try to be scary, it just happens sometimes. But he didn't like what I had to say, so I got kicked out of the art program. And that was it. No more art education for me. Everything I've learned, I've figured out on my own. I've watched a couple of YouTube videos, a few online videos on sculpting, just to learn a few techniques and to learn how to make a few tools. Other than that, it's just playing. When all this started, roughly 4 years, well, going on 5 years ago, I had lost my job. The Affordable Health Care Act kicked in, and all of the hospitals, all the doctor's offices decided, you know, we're not getting to bill much for insurance, so it's just not financially responsible for us to keep x-ray techs in our office. So all the office techs lost their jobs. At least most did. So I'm sitting at home, bored out of my mind. Finished the Scarecrow contest for that year. Was still on a roll on just making stuff. So I went to Walmart. I mean, literally, I was selling plasma to get by. We had our bills covered. There was a little bit of spare money. I bought a $5 box of polymer clay from Walmart and I started playing with it. First night, nothing. The second day, I sculpted a amphibian guy. Pictures of it are online. It looked good. I was happy with it. So I sculpted a few more things. About a week or so goes on, and a good friend of mine, guy I've known for years, one of the best paramedics I've ever known. Just the first time I met this guy, you wouldn't. He is a case at that point in time of don't judge a book by its cover. Covered with tattoos. You know, back then it wasn't as acceptable. And again, one of the best human beings you will ever meet. Excellent paramedic, just excellent human being. He saw what I was posting on Facebook and said, hey, you ought to make shift knobs. I said, okay, well, I gotta figure out how to cast these things first because you can't use this clay as a knob. It'll work for a little while, but it'll crumble. So after a few weeks of trial and error, I had it figured out. I made my first knob, and that was the Tiki. That was the first one that successfully cast. I sculpted, molded it, cast it. Still using the same mold to cast on that one. And it snowballed ever since. Last 16 months has been a little bit of rough due to health issues and a few other things going on, but still moving forward. So, I guess since I've rambled for almost 15 minutes, that's the story of what landed me in the middle of all of this. Well, not somewhat of it. How I ended up, well, story of my art education and why I have quite a bit of disdain for the term artist. So, have a good one. Have a good Saturday. Take care. More to come.